Day 4 is over. It's time for the video. Today I learned some cool information about solid waste management, about urine treatment, and some cool stuff about nuclear power or nuclear energy. How does it work? How was it discovered? And what is the current situation in the world about nuclear power? So, let's talk about the nuclear power first. How was it discovered? It was in 1938 when scientists first discovered the thing called nuclear fission. What nuclear fission is? So they basically slammed atom of uranium with neutron, dividing them into two, and when they divide into two they release a large amount of energy. So that's basically how the nuclear energy comes and how it works. And the cool thing is, when during the nuclear fusion, up to 3 neutrons can be ejected, so it creates some sort of chain reaction, making more and more energy. So that's how it works. Now let's go back in time to the World War II, when the same principle was used to create the first atomic bomb. Human could not just use nuclear fusion for good at first, so they decided to make a weapon of mass destruction instead. And that was horrible. Everybody knows what happened back then, and it was, in my opinion, that was one of the biggest mistakes of humankind. But it was not like that until 1955, when the first nuclear power plant was built. And at that time that was something incredible. The whole science community was so excited about it. They would just imagine the potential future for the nuclear power, how great it might be, and it was awesome. And the nuclear energy is awesome. The nuclear power is pretty cool, just because it does not need enormous amount of space in order to produce energy. It is pretty clean compared to other sources of fuel, and overall it's more efficient. But right nowadays, only for about 10% of the world's electricity comes from nuclear power plants. But why? What went wrong? What happened to all those prophecies about the potential future of nuclear power? Well, it's pretty complicated, but I would say that was because of coincidence, such as Chernobyl incident, or Fukushima incident in 2011, or nuclear reactor meltdown in 1979. And all those things combined together made it really, really hard to not be afraid of nuclear power among society. And people just rejected to accept that new source of electricity. But the funny thing is, only compared to fossil fuels that still are taking up to 90% of energy production. Compared to fossil fuels, the nuclear power is much safer. It's pretty safe, just because during all those incidents only tens of thousands of people were affected by it, in a negative way. But how about the fossil fuels? Well, in the past 50 years, for about 100 million of people died because of the byproducts, which came from the burning of fossil fuel, right? So yeah, that's pretty sad. That is pretty sad, just because it turns out the working in an office, let's say in a big city, it's much safer than working in a nuclear power plant itself. Yep, I guess the media did a great job by criticizing nuclear power, so that nobody would even want to listen to its potential benefits. Oh, and I'm pretty sure that's because nuclear power is very expensive. It's very expensive to build, so most of the countries would just close their eyes on the all good aspects of nuclear power, just to keep burning fossil fuels, just because it's much cheaper, huh? Well, yeah, that was all. That was it. That was all for the nuclear energy, the nuclear power, and the overall situation in the world. Now let's move on to solid waste management. Well, solid waste management. So human produces enormous amount of solid waste each day, so we have to somehow treat them, right? But after the treatment, what's gonna happen to remainings? And I'm talking about ashes. Yeah, it turns out even after the treatment, we still have some wastes in face of ashes. And I was shocked when I discovered how people deal with those ashes. It turns out some countries just release it into the air. Some countries just charge it into the oceans or rivers or any other place with a big water mass, with a big water body, or some countries just throw it into the space. Right, that's how it works. And so I think I'll study it further in the future, just because I don't know, I find it pretty interesting. Now the most disgusting, I would say, topic that I learned was urination system, or urine treatment, or the yellow water treatment, and we all know what does it mean, right? So the water from the toilet, and it turns out some freaks just have those toilets with separate pipes for the solid waste and for yellow water, and people keep it in storages, in gigantic storages, and keep it with ammonia, just to not let bioorganisms to reproduce, to stop their metabolism. in order to keep urine for a much longer time. But why should we even keep urine? Well, it turns out urine has very good chemical aspects, and it might be if it's treated well, if it's treated in a correct way, then it's gonna turn to a good fertilizer. Yeah. And there are multiple ways of treating urine. Some people just don't do it and just use it for the agriculture. Yep, the yellow water goes to the agriculture. Some people dry it. There are those kind of methods. When we dry it, it becomes a good fertilizer. Some people just vaporize it, or I have no idea why do they do this. And some people use this, as I mentioned before, store them for the future purposes, for the future use. Yep, that was it for the urination system. Of course, there were some chemicals included, but since I'm not good at chemistry, or at least right now, I'm not gonna dive deeper into it. So, yep, that's it for today. Oh, and Chinese. Actually, I did not have enough time to spend some time for Chinese language, but at least I learned one really good, really helpful word or really helpful structure that is used day-to-day life, which is 所以但是所以但是 although, like even though, although, for example, 但是他喜欢他不是所以不是所以不是所以 sorry, that was another word. 虽然 that's right, 虽然 and 但是 although, even though, 虽然他喜欢他，但是没告诉他，没有告诉他，虽然他喜欢他，但是没有告诉他。Even though she likes him, she didn't tell him. Yeah, something like that. Or you can also make more complicated structures, such as more complicated sentences, such as 虽然我不喜欢运动，但是我知道运动对我的身体好，运动对身体好。It's like even though I do not like doing sport, I know that doing sport is good for my body. Yep, pretty useful in my opinion, and I'm gonna use it a lot, that's for sure. Oh, and characters. I'm still struggling with those characters, bro. It's just 25,000 characters, seriously. How do people even memorize all of those? But I've mentioned that if I keep writing it down every time I see a word, every time I read the sentence, every time I learn the sentence, it helps me somehow memorize a couple of words per sentence, which is pretty cool, and I think that's how it works. And it's gonna take some time, but I believe I can do it. Anyway, that was it for today, and hopefully tomorrow I'm gonna be working on my presentation. Yep, I really want to win this competition.